Hello, how's it going? I started this character on the last stream and then the power went out briefly and it just kind of made the live stream a little funny. We've gone for a little bit, so I'm just picking up from where I left off. I don't think I've done anything else since. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, did a quick audio check. Gonna get my music going. And pretty much smooth sailing from there. Got a reference pulled up. Alright, let's get rolling. Right now I'm detailing this skirt just by using the damp sander brush and then using Alt every now and then to build up these little edges. There's other ways you could do this. A fun way to do it is to mask out like a little wobbly circle or oval and then extrude from that. Every now and then I like to do more of a slow approach and just sculpt it out. There we go. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to delete the subdivision levels, and then I'm going to get a stroke, curve functions, and frame. I'm going to add a little trim to the top and the bottom of this. It's a little thicker than I want, so I'm just going to change my brush size. The larger the brush size, the larger the trim. Smaller, the smaller the trim. I only want the trim at the top, so I'm going to auto groups and then just hide that bottom piece. There we go. And then this little character at the upper left here that I have kind of like stamped on the screen is about the midpoint of where I started last time. I just kind of have it on there because it's kind of cool to see reference of like where I was at and then where I'm at currently. And there's two painted stripes on here. I'm not sure if I want to sculpt those out or how I want to do it. So right now I'm just masking out where one of those stripes would be, and then I'll see if I just want to poly paint it just so I can see it in the render, or if I want to try actually making it like a paintable stripe. And to get this mask to work, all I do is hold down Control, or if you're on Mac, Command. Yeah, I might as well extract that into its own little piece instead of just poly painting it. Gonna turn the subdiv down a little bit so that when we extract a piece, it's not going to be super high res because I don't need it to be. It's just a simple little stripe. didn't follow the contour super well, and that's partly because I did extract it at lower res, so I might go back and kind of play with this to see what's going to fit the skirt best. It's a little wobbly, so let's see if Polish by Features fixes it. Does an okay job. Let's just try it again, but at a higher subdiv, actually. Again, I usually avoid that because I like to work as low poly as possible. But if that's what we need to do to get this to work, then that's what we'll do. I'm going to still try Z-remeshing it. Kind of see where that gets us. It's odd, it kind of affected. Oh, I have symmetry turned on, that's why. If you have symmetry turned on when you Z-remesh, it will change the mesh so it is symmetrical. Looks like that worked pretty well. So I used the auto crease function, which actually did a pretty good job. And then Polish by Features. I could even go further to clean this up, but for our purposes here, this is plenty good enough. Then depending how consistent the pleats are, let's see if I can just move this up and then shape it. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, but it'd be cool if I could. It'd save me some time. Might as well try. Looks like this is going to work. Awesome. Alright, that's plenty good enough. Now let's work on the shirt, because now the shirt's pretty boring. Alright, so there is a green trim on this. So let me duplicate it. Delete subdiv, and then kind of similar to earlier, going to stroke and then frame mesh. And I'll adjust how thick this trim is by changing my brush size. That looks good. I don't need this piece right here, it's a little redundant since we already have it. So I'll go ahead and delete that. There we go. And then we'll do the same with this. But this one's going to be the opposite. It's going to be a green piece with white trim. Trim came out a little weird. Let's try it again. I think the reason that happened is because I have border, polygroups, and crease edges, so I was doing all of them. We don't need all of them. We just need the border. That looks much better. There we go. starting to get a lot of subtools as I work, so I'm gonna start merging some of these pieces together that don't need to be their own separate thing. Also gonna look, well, all the references that I have look pretty different. Trying to see what looks most consistent. Like on some, it's more like a collar, and then on other ones, not so much. I see some news here. Hello. Or I think you're new anyway. I don't recognize your username. And like always, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Alright, I'm happy with that. Again, what are the references I'm finding? You know, after I add her cape and stuff, you're not going to be able to see most of it anyway, so I'm just going to move on from it and not worry about it too much. But for the record, I do think it looks a little odd. I'm also going to delete this trim on the bottom because it just doesn't need to be there. First time watching live. Yeah, well, thanks for hanging out. I've been making models for a while, but my live stream schedule is not very consistent. I actually started making models in 2018, when I first started learning how to sculpt. Oh, I think ZBrush just crashed on me. It only ever does this when I live stream, I swear. I can work for hours and hours and hours, no problem. The second that I live stream, it's like, ooh, someone else is watching this. Nah, we're gonna cut out. Yes. ZBrush gave me a very helpful notice, being like, hey, I abnormally terminated. I'm like, I know, thanks. Goodness. This is why I have quick saves turned on every 3 minutes, because I'm paranoid. That was the error message popping up really quick there. Massive eye roll. So goofy. Alright, let's try this again. See, I didn't lose any work because I obsessively have quick saves enabled. Works out. Alright, let's try that again. Looks like we're not going to have a speed sculpt for this because it's going to want to crash, which is a-okay. Not going to worry about it. Alright, back to what I was doing. What I was doing, I was subdividing the shirt and adding some fabric folds. So to do that, I will have ZBrush selected, and then I will have Lazy Mouse enabled as well. And then we'll just start sculpting some fabric folds. I kind of vary between having symmetry turn on and off for this. Let's see, they say, I guess your videos help me a lot. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. You're very welcome. And Xandra's here. Hello. Still don't know the character. I don't either. I have never, well, I mean, I do, but I've never heard of or seen this anime. And just for anyone new or that is lurking, I like never sculpt anime characters. This was a request that I got from someone on my Patreon for, they're allowed to order models once a month. And this is what they picked. And initially I fought them on it because I'm like, hey, I don't do copyrighted characters, but I can do something inspired by it if you're okay by that. And yeah, they were more than okay with that. So I ended up doing it still. But usually I just say no. I don't like messing with IP that is not mine. Said what anime? I don't remember. I looked at the... I knew it was at one point. Again, I'm just looking at a reference image from it. I just knew that when I read the title, I didn't recognize it. Gonna add a little bit of weathering to the belt on her hip. Nothing too crazy, just like a low light texture to kind of break up how perfectly smooth it is. I found that these small details go a long way. Also gonna add some fabric folds to this little scarf decoration piece. Just make it look a little less stiff. Thank you guys for hanging out. Just gonna have a chill little time as I work on this. Corey's here. Hello. I'm trying to remember if you are new. I think you were here last time, actually. I do my best to remember. Either way, welcome. Hello. And then again, since ZBrush did crash, I lost a tiny bit of work, which is just getting rid of that extra trim piece. That's all taken care of now, and then we're gonna make this shape make a little bit more sense. There's a good chance I'm just gonna cover it up with a cape. As of now, I can see it, and it makes me want to fix it. I hope you guys have been having a good week. What is today? Wednesday? I spent most of my day today at the barn. Those that don't know, I have a horse. He's a very good boy. Today he got his feet done. Which doesn't take very long. I don't have shoes on or anything, so they just trim his hooves and then he's good to go. Corey said, yeah, I think I talked to you a week ago or so. You're working on a sloth? Oh, yes, yes. I was working on 7 Deadly Sins, and I was working on sloth. Yes. You have better memory than I do. Well, thanks for stopping by again. I'm glad that I live streamed. I almost didn't, but then I couldn't think of any good reasons not to. Sometimes in my head, I'm like, oh, you know, it's extra work, and I'm just like, is it though? I just kind of casually narrate what I'm doing every now and then, and that's about it. Sometimes I get in a, like, I mean everyone does, getting in a habit of like only doing things when it's like the perfect mood or whatever, and I'm like, just do it. I'm glad I did. I feel like this has already been worth it. Honestly, I've never really had a bad stream before. I know some other people have some like horror stories, but I don't know, if I ever have someone in the chat that's getting my nerves or I don't like them, I just get rid of them. I don't talk about it. I don't make a fanfare about it. I'm like, oh, that was a weird, inappropriate comment. Be gone. And then there you go. Drama-free streams, yeah? Also, I feel like I get pretty lucky too. People that stop by are really cool. I don't know how many folds I want to add to the top of her hat, because I'm still not totally sure what texture it's supposed to be. It's kind of like it runs like a floppy beret of some sort. Oh wow, it's like one of the first times that the auto crease function didn't work the way I thought it was going to. No worry. I'll just pull up the Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, click on crease, edge loop complete, and just click. It's that easy. But if the button will auto do it for me, that is great. So I will let it do that. Let's see, gonna merge these down, trying to keep track of my subtools before I have 1,000 of them. Let's see, Corey says, yeah, for sure. I'm actually curious what the classes or courses you teach. I was wondering if you'd be willing to kind of explain how that works. Oh, of course. I love talking about what I do. All right, so the way that it works is there's a couple different levels of mentorship. If you just want access to my classes, it's $10 a month, but mentorship starts at 20. And the way that I do mentorship is I ask you what your goal is, and then I pretty much tailor it based on that. Most of my students have never had any experience before. So, for example, let's say you have no experience. What does it look like? Well, you tell me you have no experience. I tell you what you need. You need an art tablet, and then you either need the free trial of ZBrush, lasts for 2 weeks, I think. And then, getting distracted by this. Anyway, and then, if you don't want to do that, there's also ZBrush Core, which is only $10 a month. ZBrush Core is fantastic. It looks just like the program I'm using, but you don't have like UV mapping and stuff, and you don't need it. Like, as a beginner, we're just going to teach you how to sculpt. You don't need to worry about UV maps. And then I give you assignments. So the first assignment is always user interface. It's like, hey, what are the important buttons? And I don't give you assignments and just throw you on your own. I have videos that are like between 3 to 6 minutes that will walk you through it. All those videos are hosted on my website. They're password protected, so you feel fancy. I'll actually link my website right now so you kind of know what I'm talking about. There is a big tab that literally says classroom. Let's see, I think I did that right. Looks like I tagged my own name. It's funny. That's the website, and there's a big tab that says classroom, and it has all the resources under it. So yeah, essentially how it works for mentorship anyway. You're like, okay, these are my goals. I tell you what you need. Once you have your tablet and your software all ready to go, which I'll also help you with that, I have videos, I give you assignments. That's pretty much the gist of it. Once you get through the basics though, what does that look like? Because once you know what brushes are and the interface and stuff, I get you started on project work. And essentially I give you a bunch of small assignments that eventually end up being in a finished product, because I don't think it's very fair to give students an assignment that's like, finish a character. It's like, that's like so many steps, you know? But that's kind of the gist of it. I really need to make a video explaining it. I do intend to do that at some point. I just have been focused on other projects I've been working on. Corey said, tablet should be here tomorrow. Ooh, exciting. My old one broke, but after talking to you last week, I decided to try again. That's awesome. That's so cool. It makes me feel really good. I'm really glad that, you know, inspired like a small but good change. About the most anyone can ask for, yeah? I think art is really intimidating. And there's a lot of... The biggest problem and the hardest part about being an artist is being afraid of creating bad art. The second that you stop caring about that and you're like, fuck it, I'll make art that looks terrible, watch me. you like loosen up so much. Once you give yourself a license to make bad art, that's when you really start to learn. Just earlier this week, I was working on something. I think it was the Seven Deadly Sins. I wasn't live streaming though. And man, I just got so in my own head. Like, it sounds good on paper when you're like, oh, I'm gonna make something amazing, right? I'm gonna make this the best piece I've ever made. But then you go to sit down and like the pressure is not helpful. It's actually really debilitating sometimes. You gotta just chill out and be like, you know what? If it doesn't turn out the way I want it to, that's okay. I'll make notes of what I want to change and then I'll change it. And that's where you really get to start making progress. Otherwise, if you're always trying to make the absolute best work, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. If that didn't make sense, just let me know. I can kind of re-explain it. That's the gist of it. It makes sense in my head. Because I know if you're just like tuning in, you're like, is she advocating to make bad art? Yes. But there's more to it than that, I promise. Obviously, I will teach you how to make good art too. But if you're always worried about making each thing the best, what is it called? Like blank page syndrome? Like when you stare at like writers look at the blank piece of paper before they start to write their book and they just become like paralyzed because it's so intimidating. That's what I'm talking about. Tori said, yeah, debilitating for sure, right? Like, oh, goodness. And then especially if you have, like, expectations of what level you want to be at one day and then you're comparing yourself to it. I always joke that, like, the worst combination you can do to yourself is high expectations and vague goals. Because then you're always disappointed. And then if your goals are vague, you'll just keep redefining what your goals are and never really celebrate, like, how far you've come. Let's see, am I actually going to make shoes on live stream? I haven't made a pair of shoes in so long. But I should, and I know how to do them. Nope, I don't want to. I'm not going to make shoes right now. Anyway. Corey said, oh, it makes sense to me. I was like, you're basically explaining to me about trying to make art anyway. Okay, I'm glad that it connected, because I could see it being confusing or whatever. But I'm really glad. And, what helps me the most is I try to like reward myself mentally for how many times I like try again, as opposed to making something great. And what I mean by that is let's look at this model right now, okay? I can look at this and if I ask myself what is wrong with it and what I need to improve, I can come up with a list, right? However, if I ask myself, well, what do I like about it so far? I can also come up with a list. And then instead of asking myself, what am I going to fix about this? I ask myself, how am I going to make the rest of the model complement my favorite parts of the model? And I know it's very like positive, like almost like crystal girly stuff. Like it's legit. If you're nice to yourself when you create art, you make more art and you make better art. But I feel like it's been kind of romanticized of being super self-critical and like the grind of being an artist and like you're always studying and pushing, and it's not for me, y'all. I am too sensitive for that. I hurt my own feelings, and then I'm like, I can't do this. I gotta be really nice to myself. And I found that it helps my students a lot more too. If you just be nice to yourself. Obviously easier said than done. But yeah. Alright, I'm pretty happy with how this is coming along. And no, I'm not gonna make her shoes. I just hate it, y'all. I need shoes. I'm also not exactly sure what kind of boots I want to make for her, and once I'm excited about it, I'll find some references and work from it. I think what I'm going to do next is create her sword. I might modify one that I already have. I want to work on her cape because capes are fun, but capes are best when it's done after you've posed because you can like give it that dramatic wind effect. So if I don't know what that's going to be yet, I'm banning myself from doing that quite yet. How about I organize my subtools a little bit? That'd be a productive spend of my time. ZBrush does have folders that you can use, and I was so excited when the update came out, and I have used them approximately 0 times. I don't have any good reason for it, Apparently I wasn't as excited about as I thought it was. Let's see, I want to make her nails a color. There we are. I got so distracted talking about myself and art and like the philosophy of it. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing right now? I want to finish this model. Okay, what is the next step? I can either pose it or make shoes or make her weapon. Let's make the weapon. All right. So I have a little asset library that I made of all my old stuff, which is great, and it really speeds up my workflow. Also, you get tired of sculpting this. If you sculpt the exact same thing over and over again, it gets a little tedious, you know? Let's see if I have a sword that will fit for this. And if not, just like a good starting point. Oh, I haven't used this in a long time. Yeah, this is a older one that I did, but I think it actually fits for this model really well. Does it have multiple subtools or polygroups? Probably not, because it's really old. That's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and poly paint it really quick. I probably should look at the chat because I've been talking a lot too. Corey said, true, much easier said than done. You probably talk about being nice to yourself as you create, and yeah, definitely. Alright, and they said, Corey said, I was a bit sad. I couldn't get ZBrush 2023. Had gotten used to them giving perpetual license all the updates, so mine ends at 2022.07. Not sure if they'll be updating anymore. That's the same one I have. I'm actually on 2022.05, so I'm a little more outdated than you. And yeah, it doesn't get updates anymore, but honestly, I just couldn't care less. Like, the new update for that, since Maxon bought Pixelogic, it's like an ooze bridge or something, and I'm like, all right, cool. Like, it's just stuff that I don't care about. Like, if I find a tool that they provide that's new that I'm really excited about, yeah, I might consider buying a new perpetual license. They do offer perpetual licenses still. I was very surprised by this, just so you know, that is a thing. But until then, just the tool as ZBrush is right now, plenty. I have made around 600 models, I think, at this point. Hasn't stopped me. So whatever new tools or whatever they're going to be introducing, obviously I don't need them. If I really think I do, I'll deal with it then, yeah. I think it's really easy to get caught up and be like, man, if only I had like the right tool to get started, it would help. And that can be true to an extent, but I just have to be honest with myself where I'm like, am I using this as a reason to not get started? Or do I actually need the tool? What's that saying? Like, you can build a house out of toothpicks, but it'd sure be a lot easier if you had like 2x4s kind of thing. This character looks 1,000 times more interesting with a sword on her hip. Whoop. There we go. Also, I've gotta have boots that complement this character. I gotta. Let's take a quick look. I was hoping that it'd give me a preview of this boot, but it's not going to. I called it new boot. Very helpful. I don't know what that means. Oh, this actually looks pretty nice. Well, sweet. The color scheme isn't matching for this model, but the rest of it That'll do just fine. Well, sweet. So glad I very helpfully labeled it new boot. Also, why is ZBrush lagging right now? Let me open my activity monitor, kind of see what's up. Alright, you said, oh yeah, my big blocker personally was a tablet. I don't fancy using a mouse after the little I tried. Oh yeah, don't use a mouse. Oh my god. Good for you. Thank you for getting a tablet. Like, that's the only thing that I don't know, I guess, gatekeepery on. It annoys the shit out of me to see people sculpting with a mouse. It genuinely does. I'm like, it's weird because people will ask, like, oh, like, well, why can't I sculpt with a mouse? I'm like, it's the same way you wouldn't draw with a mouse. Like, you'd use a pencil or, like, a pen, you know? Like, it's so... If you're just modeling, like, doing hard surface stuff, like, yeah, sure, I could see it. But if you're gonna be sculpting, like, don't do it. Alright. What? Is there anything my computer's upset about? No, it's all good. Alright, then we'll just move on. And then, well, in terms of even wanting to try sculpting, the other blockers is all the mental stuff. Oh, yeah. Which, I mean, is not to be brushed aside lightly. I mean, it's tough. I have pretty much tried every little method there is out there to learn how to sculpt, and then if I'm not sculpting enough, it's just like, okay, what if I'm like super serious and like harsh and like, okay, I'm just gonna do it every day or whatever. That doesn't work either. Like, you have to, if you're gonna make a big change in your life, you have to introduce it slowly. You're not gonna just wake up one day and suddenly want to sculpt every day. You're just not. It's just so far from your current routine. You can't, it's expecting too much of yourself. It's not fair. What I recommend for my students when they start out is the habit I want to instill is opening ZBrush every day. And I'm serious, this is gonna be way harder than you expect. And that's all it is. I want you to set your computer as if you're gonna sculpt, get your tablet out if it's not already out, open ZBrush, open a sphere. Do all of that, because that's the hardest part, is just getting your butt in the chair and having everything open. And then from there, if you're feeling adventurous, I commit to sculpting a single stroke on the default sphere. You go to Lightbox by hitting comma and go to project. Any of these spheres. If you do that, excellent. You're off to a great start. I've got people like, oh, it can't be that simple. It kind of is, actually. Because every day, you end up sculpting a little more. You do a little bit more. And that's what makes the big difference. It's the small cumulative things. Alright, let me look at some more references for these boots. I like to turn on transparency a lot when I'm putting on clothes or fitting clothes, because you can actually see the body underneath and be like, okay, does that make sense? Does that look right? Excellent. I like how this is looking a lot. I feel like the green on her boots is a much lighter color, but that's not possible because I color picked it. Just optical illusion. Oh, hello. I also think you're new. I need to stop saying that because there's more and more people hanging out, which is awesome. But I'm gonna feel bad if I forget someone. Anyway, hello, welcome. They said, I didn't really make any progress until I started doodling on Nomad Sculpt. Somehow that made it less serious for me. Absolutely. I actually have Nomad Sculpt too. So my version in 2018 was using Sculptress. They don't even offer it anymore, but it is made by Pixelogic. And yeah, it doesn't allow subtools, there's no UV mapping or textures, it's just some brushes. And that's what really gave me my start, and there was no pressure, and that was necessary. Hello, Vic. I don't know what you're referencing. All right. I think I'm gonna make these boots a little bit taller. All right, this is coming a long way. It's hard to believe that what was on the left is what, this used to look like. Awesome. I think I'm gonna get a refill on my water and then I'll be right back, okay? Probably like 5 minutes, give or take. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'll be right back. Hey all, back. Alright, so got some questions. Do you sit down to sculpt something and then spend 4 hours looking for reference materials instead? No, generally. I'm usually pretty aware of what I'm going to be working on, but I'm also like hyper organized. I have like a spreadsheet of exactly what I'm sculpting and what stages they're all at and that kind of stuff. That being said, I do enjoy looking at source material and like being inspired, but I have such a long laundry list of stuff to do at this point that it doesn't happen as much anymore. And are you a hoarder of YouTube tutorials? Oh, absolutely. 100%. I'm always picking up like little techniques and tips and tricks, that kind of stuff. If I'd spent a fraction of the time I've spent watching tutorials or actually moving digital clay around, I'd be so much better. It's true. And the first step is knowing that. And the Corey mentions like, I definitely stop myself before I get started is more of what it is. Yeah, no, I do get that too. That's why I mentioned like the best exercise is get in the habit of every day, sit down at your computer, have the software open. Don't even commit to like doing something amazing. Just get there, and that's half the fight. All right. So I've decided I'm going to work on her hair, kind of get that looking how I want to, and then I'm not going to pose right now because I'm not in the mood. And I'll probably be done for the stream. So probably another 10-15 minutes or so. I'm going to hide her little hat. Ooh, maybe I'm not going to hide her hat because I have to fix her bangs and I don't want to do that. I'm going to put her hat back on. And I'll start adding some detail to her hair. For a quick detail for her hair, I like using the slash brush, which is under the light box. And then having my lazy mouse on. Okay, I'm going to hide her hat, but I'm not going to intend to make this look its best without the hat. I will know that the top is going to be covered up and just be happy with that. All right. I'm also going to auto groups and then turn mask by polygroups to 100. And what that does is it makes it so if I sculpt on something, if I start scribbling off of that mesh, it doesn't affect anything else. It just affects the polygroup I started to sculpt on. And now I'm doing much more detailed hair. What I do is I have this hairbrush from Danny Mac. He is an excellent 3D artist with a lot of good stuff on YouTube. Really easy to follow. And I like using that hairbrush, but I'm not pushing for the sculpt to be the most amazing detailed thing I've ever made, especially because a lot of the hair will be under the hat anyway. I think just a moderate amount of detail will be plenty. Just adding that little bit of texture adds so much. Not sure how I want her hair to be. I kind of want it to be almost like a little bit spiky. I'm not sure how much I want to define that. And thank you guys for hanging out. This has been a lot of fun. For anyone that is interested in either my 3D printable models or in learning how to sculpt with me, learn how to sculpt, these are my important socials. I always think it's this way. It's up there. Anyway, the top Patreon is for 3D printable models, and the second one is for learning how to sculpt. If you do want both, that is an option on the first one still. It's just not like the main focus. You won't get like tutorial Patreon post. That's about it. You still get all the same source material. I always find this like really simple method of detailing hair really relaxing. Not overcomplicating it, and it looks great 3D printed. And if I do want to go back and make it a little fancier, a little more detailed, I can still do that. And I still like having this as a base regardless. Alright, this is looking pretty good. I think I'm actually going to replace my old image that was sitting up there with something, you know, a little more recent, a little more updated. There we go. So the really basic like little hair detail I did there actually came together really fast. And I still want to hang out and live stream. So I'm not going to stop streaming quite yet, actually. I am going to detail the cape. I am running out of things, and I really am going to have to pose at some point. And again, I'm just not super in the mood to do that. So I'm trying to find other things to work on. I could always work on one of the sins as well. For those that are new or not aware, I'm working on the 7 Deadly Sins project. That'll be a Kickstarter launching later, actually. I might as well link it. Sometimes I forget to talk about and link my own stuff, which is funny. There you go. If you want to know what I'm talking about, there we are. I'll actually pin that too. That's going to launch again like in a few weeks or so, and that's mostly been live streaming recently as well. I think I want her cape to be a little bit shorter and also change the shape a little bit with the taper function. There we go. Also need to see what how long it is in the references. I think it's a shorter cape. Yes, it is. Okay. Capes are so much fun to sculpt. ZBrush added a dynamic like cloth simulation feature, I think a year ago. It works really well, but I like sculpting fabrics. I don't use it very often. And what I do is I come through with a standard brush and I draw a stroke out, and if I like it, I click number 1 on my keyboard and that will repeat the stroke that I just did. And then Corey said, so those are the files for anyone who gets it, be able to 3D print it? Yes, you are correct. So I'm just get some like pretty large pipe folds in here. Pretty quick and easy. And then I think I'm gonna want it kind of like a dramatic like swoosh, because who doesn't like a swooshy cape? And I'll worry about how this attaches or not later. That already looks so much better. All good designs need a cape. Similar to her skirt, it would be nice if her cape had like a white stripe on it or something. Someone new here. I'm just gonna say thank you. But I think the stripe might look a little messy, so instead I might just add this nice little like gradient color. I think her cape was more black, that would look nice too. I don't want to change the color scheme too much though, because I do like the green. Alright, I'm going to look at her shirt a little closer and detail the fabric folds I already have. So what I do with that is I take my sander brush again, and then I make it a little bit smaller and then increase the intensity as well. So a little bit smaller, increase the intensity, and then kind of start adding pretty much just like which of these strokes that I think should stand out the most, and then exaggerating those. I'm also making sure I do this on the highest subdivision level, so that way I'll keep the most detail. I might have the Z intensity a little too high, so I'm kind of getting harsh edges. Once I draw these strokes out, I also go through and I kind of smooth where they started. I'm going to turn symmetry back on and detail the bottom of this kind of to show that like it's tucked into her skirt. Here we go. I think I'm also missing a fabric fold that would like to be right here, kind of under her armpit. There we go. And I'm leaving the top like completely blank because you can't see it, so I'm not going to worry about it. There we go, making those fabric folds a little more intense. It's a nice little pop of detail. Awesome. This character is really starting to grow on me. I'm starting to like her a lot. I'm gonna add a little bit of a rough texture to her gloves because I like to think they're kind of like a worn leather or something. I'm also going to use either the damn standard brush or a chisel brush to go through and really kind of carve out where the seams would be. I think the damp center brush is going to work just fine as long as I have the intensity really high. Something like that. Alright. Where are the seams on a glove? I think it's just around the fingers, yeah? I need to turn lazy mouse on. My hand is so shaky. Okay. If I do all of those details in between her fingers, it's going to take forever, and this is going to be 3D printed, ideally pretty small, so I will look at that more carefully once she is posed to see what you can and cannot see. And then adding some little details across the top of her glove will go a long way. I also feel like she needs like a seam right here or something, but why not? I can also add some stitches to this later if I want to. Maybe a line across her knuckles too? And then you can see some of the skin of her hand peeking out because I cut through pretty deep. So all I'll do is I'll select these gloves and grab my 3D gizmo, make sure it is centered, and just inflate just a touch. And there you go. Before, after. Also looks more glove-like, I think. That's pretty like low effort but high impact detail. My favorite. My favorite kind. I find that just drawing any sort of pattern is better than having nothing. Alright, and now I'm going to go through with that light texturing I was talking about earlier. Light texturing. Turn down the intensity. There we go. I also don't want to go too crazy with this because I might end up posing her hands to where they're closed and they're not going to be able to see this anyway. If you're using ZBrush and you have this problem where it seems like it's rotating like in the middle of nowhere and it's just weird, if you draw a small mask, wherever you want it to rotate, then it'll actually pivot from like the center of the model again. Just make sure to draw a small mask and then clear it. I think this might look better if I take this top collar and inflate it a bunch. Or just make it larger so it's like the top piece. I think I'm going to do that and then make that the cape, actually. There we go. So I will color this to be the same color as the top of the cape. There you go. And it more visually interesting and it makes more sense. Win-win. Oh, there's a lot more people here than there was a second ago. If you have any questions, just let me know. And then Mag says, oh man, that mask trick is great. Thank you. Oh, good. I'm really glad that that made sense. Excellent, excellent. Sometimes I think of things like that as I'm sculpting, like, oh, that might be helpful, and then I won't say them out loud because I'm like, oh, like people probably already know that. So you saying that really helps me. I'm like, okay, don't hold back. All of the tips and tricks. Nothing is too basic. I think I'm going to add a detail to this little top flap thing too. Just like a little traced pattern. How's that? That looks just like a little something. Can you tell that I'm just procrastinating to not pose? Posing is not that bad. I just struggled with it for a long time, so I avoid it now. There's two different ways that you can pose. Using Transpose Master is fantastic. Something else that I also like to do is I'll take this mesh, I'll hide all of the clothes, and I'll pose the body naked. Nothing on it. I find it a lot easier to focus on the forms and then make it make sense. Because I noticed that my pose with the clothes on, I have a hard time thinking like how the body looks underneath it. This kind of sounds weird. Anyway, I swear it's easier, which makes me shy to pose on stream because I'm just posing a naked body for like, you know, that I don't know. For me, I'm not fazed by it at all, but I understand if someone clicks on my stream and like, oh, cool, an artist is working, and it's just like naked. I'm like, I'm sorry. It is part of the process, I swear. It's only weird because I'm making it weird. I know. Anyway, you could also use Transpose Master, which keeps all of your subtools, and they're dressed. But I find there's a lot of, sorry if that was a terrible sound, my pen scratched my mic. Anyway, I find that there's a lot of resculpting that has to happen when you pose, and I notice there's a lot more deformation in the clothes and all the different materials when I keep everything visible. I find the doll method much easier, which is posing it and then dressing her up afterwards in the clothes that I've already sculpted symmetrically. So yes, that's probably what I'm going to do with this one too. But again, not on stream because it's, I don't know. I just find it weird. I really like this character. I feel like it came together really quickly too. And I don't have a speed sculpt for you guys this time because my computer was being a little funny about it and it crashed once and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to push it. So instead, I'll put a quick render on this. My favorite render set to use is one of these fun little defaults that they gave in a recent-ish update, and it's radial overlay. Sometimes it doesn't work well, but generally speaking, it does a great job. So I have that selected. I make sure that under render, I have preview AO, which is ambient occlusion, turned on. If it's turned on, the intensity is defaulted to 50, which can look a little harsh. See what I mean? Like that's a little nasty. So I pick something that looks good, usually around 20. And then my light setup looks like this. I have 3 lights. One, which is kind of center, but slightly off center. Excuse me. And then I have a warm light at the top left and a cool light at the bottom right. And the intensity is around 0.2-ish, 0.1-ish for all of those. The strongest light being the main white light. And then my ambient, I kind of just play with to see what looks good. And then Shift R will do the render set, and hopefully it looks good. Every now and then you get some kind of funny glitchiness, but usually it looks quite good. And as far as like any glitches that happen, yeah, it looks pretty nice. The only way I know how to fix it is to close ZBrush and restart. Otherwise, I'm not sure how to fix it. She just looks so majestic, you know? Let's go a step further. I'm going to document, and I'm clicking where it says back. I click and hold, and now whatever I drag my cursor over, it will change to be that color. So I just drag straight up this little hand because it's pure black. And I find this is kind of like a nice, like harsh, interesting background to do my renders on. And then whenever I am trying to do like a quick preview to show things off, what I do is I stamp the document. And the way that I do that is by clicking Shift and then S. So Shift S, and now you see that it's still there, which is cool. And if you want it to go away, just hit Control N or Command N if you're on Mac, and then it'll clear what you have. But I like doing this a lot because it's a really easy way to kind of build like a little character sheet of how it's looking. And I'm not sure about Windows, but on Mac, if you do Command Shift and then the number 4 on your keyboard, you can draw out screenshots. So there you go. So I'm going to use that screenshot, and I'm also going to do a render. And I always use these little renders and snapshots I'm doing right now for the thumbnail I'm going to make after this live stream. There we go. I'm also going to save this file before I forget. I'm just calling her a human rogue right now. Not really a super creative, cool name. That's what I got. Alright, well that pretty much wraps up the stream. If you want to support my art and get 3D printable models, go to the Patreon on top. If you want to support my art and learn how to sculpt, go to the Patreon on the bottom. And if you just want to support my art in general, I guess you could go to either one, and I would super appreciate that. Or you can just subscribe and then just hang out when I live stream, because honestly, that's super appreciated and a lot of fun for me too. I have been streaming a lot more often, but I still don't have an official schedule. One day I hope to be able to tell you guys like, hey, like Tuesdays at 2, I'll be available. But so far I'm not to be trusted. I do not stick to a schedule. So until now, just when you see me live streaming, neat. Otherwise, don't expect it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and I'll see you in a future live stream, hopefully. Bye!